I'll never forget that summer. Life on the island is simple. Quiet days, the hum of the sea, and nights under the stars. But that summer, things changed forever. It all started when Josip found her. It was early, just after dawn, when Josip was out checking his nets. He told me later that the water was unnaturally still, like it was holding its breath. That's when he saw it, a small raft drifting toward the rocks, and on it, a woman. She was unconscious, her skin pale, and her lips cracked from the sun. Josip said he thought she was dead at first. But when he leaned down, she opened her eyes, just barely, and whispered something he couldn't make out. He wrapped her in his coat and brought her back to the harbor. The whole island heard about it by noon. News spreads fast here, especially something like that. The doctor came to check on her, and Josip took her in. He said she didn't have anywhere else to go, and knowing Josip, he probably didn't even think twice. The woman's name was Lina. At least that's what she told us. She said she had fallen off a boat during a storm, but there hadn't been a storm in weeks. No one pressed her for details, though. She was fragile, like a bird with a broken wing, and Josip treated her with the kind of care you don't see often these days. Lina stayed with him, and as the weeks went by, she started to come back to life. She helped Josip with his fishing nets, cooked meals, and even learned a little Croatian. She had this way of making everyone feel at ease, but there was always something distant about her, like part of her was still somewhere far away. It wasn't long before Josip fell for her. And honestly, I think she fell for him too. You could see it in the way she looked at him, like he was her safe harbor. For a while they were happy, but Lana's past was like a shadow that never quite went away. One night at the tavern, someone asked her where she was from. She froze, her face going pale, and Josip quickly changed the subject. After that, people stopped asking questions. But I think we all knew there was more to her story than she was letting on. Then one day, everything fell apart. It was a Thursday. I remember because it was market day, and the harbor was busier than usual. That afternoon, someone found Lina in Josip's house. She was on the floor, lifeless, and the place was a mess. Drawers open, things scattered everywhere. The police said it was a robbery gone wrong, but something about it didn't sit right. Josip was devastated. He didn't say much at first, just kept to himself. But then a few days later, he came to me with a notebook he'd found hidden in Lina's things. It was full of names, dates, and places. None of it made sense to me, but Josip was convinced it was important. He said Lina had been running from something, and now he had to figure out what. That's when Josip changed. He stopped going out to sea, stopped talking to most of us. Instead, he started spending time with people from the mainland, shady types who docked their boats late at night and left before dawn. He was trying to connect the dots, chasing down leads that none of us could understand. One night, he showed up at my door. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. He told me Lina hadn't just been running. She'd been hiding from a trafficking ring. She had escaped, but they had found her, and they'd killed her to send a messagee. I told him to go to the police, but he shook his head. "They won't do anything," he said. "These people are untouchable. If I want justice for Lina, I have to do it myself." And that's exactly what he did. Over the next few weeks, Josip disappeared for days at a time. When he came back, he was different, hardened, like a man carrying the weight of something too heavy to bear. He wouldn't tell me what he was doing, but I knew it wasn't good. The last time I saw him, he came to me late at night. He looked exhausted, but there was a fire in his eyes. He told me he'd found the man who had ordered Lana's death. He wouldn't say how, but I could see the blood on his hands, figuratively, if not literally. "It's done," he said, "but it doesn't change anything. She's still gone." The next morning, Josip was gone. His boat, his house, everything. Some say he went to Italy. Others think he's still out there, hunting down the people who took Lina from him. I think about him sometimes, especially when the sea is calm. I think about Lina, too, about how the sea brought her to us and then took her away. The sea gives, and the sea takes. But for Josip, it took everything.